all the gorgeous faces.
Hi,
Fabulous to see you. We've almost got a full house tonight. Okay,
Harry.
guys, you know the rules. We've got Andrea here to talk everything website from a narrator's point of view as well. Um, Again, if you're in your pajamas, you don't want to be seen on YouTube forever, type the whole thing and I'll ask Andrea. And if you're in your pajamas and do want to be seen on YouTube, that's your option. So I'm going to kick off this call. I wanted to have Andrea on here. Andrea and I go way back. I can say from a personal point, make sure we're recording. Andrea was the second person that was nice to me when I tried to become an audiobook narrator. She was the first one I ever asked for a code from. She went over and above to be nice. She went out and got a UK code for me. And then she found out I wanted to be a narrator and she took her time and she introduced me to Sean Pratt and she got the ball rolling. She took the time. She didn't do the, oh my God, you're new, just get on Google and look it up yourself and don't ask stupid questions. She took the time to be kind. And it's 5 years later and I'm still here. So thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
And the second thing is, Andrea did websites even back then. And she gave me some advice because she's also in another group I'm in. And she gave me some advice about my website, i.e. the colors. And I loved my website. And it was, pinky showgirl. I'd been doing burlesque. I was very proud of my website. And so I promptly ignored her, very politely kind of. And then she gave me the advice again, diplomatically, a few months later. And I immediately thought, I've got a point here, I swear. I immediately thought, she thinks I'm old. I can't have pink because what? I'm old. That's it. I'm old. Nobody's going to want me to be a narrator because I'm way too old, because I'm not 16 years old, which is how old you have to have pink. I missed the point entirely. And I think that's the biggest thing I want about having Andrea on this call. I'm not going to say that I'm a reformed character and I still, because I have because I've got strange taste and my whole life I've been in corporate environments and having to follow the rules. And so my immediate reaction is to be pissed off when people tell me the way things should be. But over the years, I've learned my website's completely different now. We're not going to look at that though right now because I'm afraid you'll have advice and I won't like it. But I've seen your website. Some people trust you and they go to you, and I think we get so carried away with our character. Branding's a very difficult thing because it feels personal. But at the same time, you're selling yourself and you're wanting to convince people to like you. But a lot of us come from backgrounds where that means you have to wear beige and be boring and ignore the artist in you. And I think that's your strength. First of all, you get cranky artists and you don't flinch when they react the way I did from just some nice advice. But second of all, I've seen all the websites you create. You excel in letting their personality come through as well. It's not following the rules at the expense of being themselves, but we don't do ourselves any favor if we completely ignore what sells. And you're the master of that. I've seen you. You've got such a strong brand. Everyone knows Andrea. You win a gazillion awards. Everyone knows you. You've kept your identity very strong, but you also mix with every single level of this world, the audiobook world. And you seem to do it effortlessly. So I want to get a little bit of that magic sauce from you. So tell us, how did you start doing the websites? You'd already were a narrator, weren't you? Or did you start websites before?
No, first of all, hi everybody. It's a lot of familiar faces and some new ones. My God, Daniel, you're gonna make me blush with all that cheese you just put out. But I appreciate it.
But it's true.
and just to say, the pink thing, it had to do with knowing, and we'll talk about this more, but being castable and knowing and understanding what you have to offer and how to best put it forward instead of what you
Yeah.
think you want to be and what seems cool but doesn't make sense to what you're selling.
And I mean, you were so right. I'm sorry. I've sounded like Lauren Bacall since I was 5 years old. Pink does not sell my voice, especially since I want to do gritty thrillers about people cutting each other up.
Right. And if you look like you're YA, then it's confusing. But
Yeah.
um
So sorry, go ahead.
but so yeah, so I a little bit, I mean, I've been an actor for most of my, careers, like 30 plus years or 25 plus years. And but I've been an artist for most of my life, and I have a degree, game art and design, and I was a game designer for a little bit for Disney Interactive. So
Wow.
but I studied media art and animation along with so like I know how to model, animate, and all that kind of, not fantastic at all of it, that's my husband, but I use those skills that I have from design, and I enjoy that, and try to infuse it in my own website. When I got with Sean, he was the first coach when I was looking into getting into narration, and what am I going to do? How do I do this? And figuring out my own stuff. And actually, and I got to give big props to Megan Kelly, who's a dear friend and an amazing narrator, but she was the first person to ask, hey, you know what? I don't remember how it came up or how we were talking about it, but she asked if I would help her with her site, and it just went from there. And so that was the genesis point. So thank you, Megan, for jump-starting this kind of secondary love, because I love acting, I love narration, but I also really love tapping into the creative side, artistically, with branding and the website, and figuring out how to pull out the best of our personalities, but what's castable and all of that stuff. But I also always like to tell people, like, listen, there's 1,000 different ways to do this, and people have so many different ways that work for them that might not work for somebody else. So I always say, please take what I say with a grain of salt. I mean, I have reasons, and I'm happy to explain why I think this way, but you don't have to take me as gospel. I'm not going to be offended if you go a different route, because we all have to find our way.
But learning the rules, because okay, I haven't learned it yet. I am learning. You can break the rules, but you have to at least learn them.
Yeah. Well, and I got to say, there's some tried and true things that really we should be aware of and try not to break, so to speak. Like, always make it very spoon fed in a way, like make your demos the first thing they see and label them in such a way that it's a no-brainer. You know exactly what that track is, so I don't have to, well, do they do male female voices? I don't know, I don't have time to listen to every single one, and who cares what the name of the
Yeah.
book is? Wait, so you don't want people, because they're going to rage quit, which is a gamer term, and they get so frustrated, forget it, I'll just forget the game. You don't want people to do that. So there are certain things that I think make sense as an overall that you probably should stick to, and then deviate where it makes sense elsewhere.
Okay, I can see Andrea's dying to look at the questions. We do have
Sorry,
a
I can't help
question.
it. They keep popping up as
I
like
know,
a
I know, but
notification. So my
honestly, most of it's chat. So, but this one is a question. Harry was wondering, do we need and actually it's a good question, do we need our website to be totally and only about audiobooks and narration? Or is it okay to have pages within it about other VO and other unrelated issues like writing, live performing, etc.?
See, that's a great question, and there's several thoughts on this, and this is where well done, Harry.
He always has good questions.
He
And he
does.
always
I love
stings you with them right at the beginning.
bring him, Harry. I love it. So there's a lot of thoughts on this. A lot of people have different thoughts on this, and I've gone back and forth myself. Like, if you look at my current resume, my current website, it's mainly audiobooks with the voiceover page, right? And like, I'm working on a site right now for a narrator who is also an author, and so we're doing both. Or so I think that's one of those rule breaking things that you have to decide for yourself. I don't think it's a hard fast rule, but I think wherever you have, if you're having singular pages, that, okay, this is my audiobook page, everything should be everything that they need on the one page. If they never look anywhere else, boom, it's there. And if you're going to send someone a link, let's say you have your on camera, your voiceover, and your audiobook narration, and you're a writer, holy cow, you're a jack of all trades. So if like Danielle's like, hey, listen, send me your website, I want to talk about this audiobook thing, then send them the link to the page that's going to take them directly to the audiobook. Don't make them hunt and find it, right? So that's really up to you. I wouldn't merge the pages all together. I would keep them in their own separate lane on a collective website, if that makes sense. The
Right.
difference that I would say on the about page, um, like, hey, who's Andrea? This is where I would say you can kind of do an overall thing and maybe segment, like, okay, Andrea the actor and then Andrea the author. If I wanted to separate and give a little bit difference, maybe I might merge stuff on that page only, but the rest I would separate. But some people say do two separate because it's too confusing, and audiobook people don't want any voiceover demo reels and vice versa. But I think things have been merging into, we're all doing it and we're all actors anyway. So that I leave up to you.
Yeah. If I
Does that
remember,
help?
I think I have a voiceover page on mine. I don't think me or anyone else has ever looked at it.
You either. Well, and I would say too, like right now, mostly I do audiobooks, right? And I'd like to get more into animation and commercial and video games and stuff like that. But my focus is audiobooks. So that's where my focus of my site lives, right? So if I was more heavy duty voiceover actor or theater actor or on camera actor, but I did audiobooks, that would be where my shift would be, is where, for me personally, what I'm showing people, um, I guess where I live the most, if that makes sense.
And what you said about making it avoiding the rage, is that the right term? Because
Rage quit.
yes, because I had a session with Emily, a business session with Emily Lawrence,
Yeah.
and it made perfect sense to me at the time that I'd blow them away by my marvelousness. And I had like all 130 book thumbnails in my audiobook section. Look at how many I've done. And she said, right, but if you really are a professional narrator and you've got like 500 books, how are you going to fit those on? So it doesn't make you look like you're more, it just makes you look like you're trying harder, kind
Well,
of.
yeah, and I used to do that too. I used to have, now I have it set up as selected titles. I have a page that's selected titles, like 6 different books in the different genres that I've done and or would like to go, hey, this is where I am, my strengths are. Not that
Yeah.
I don't want to do other books, but this is where I'm very comfortable and feel, oh, hi. Hi, little one. Hi. Hi. Fiona's got a beautiful little one. Um, so yeah, because my biggest thing that I hate the most is the endless scroll. I'm like, that's the last thing. I'm like, oh my God. Plus, think about this too, right? Um, you don't have a lot of time. I know Sean talks a lot about, make sure you schedule, and Emily and Andy Arndt and, Jeffrey Kafer all says, listen, you got to have your admin time. You got to set aside the time that you're going to do the marketing part, the
Yep.
searching for your auditions or fixing up or updating your website. Do you really want to spend hours upon hours upon hours of doing that? No, you want to be in the booth. You want to be auditioning and all that kind of stuff. So think about streamlining your site to the things that make the most sense. Put a link that on a button that says, mine says Andrea on Audible, and you click on it, takes you right to my Audible library with all of the books, and and honestly, I doubt anyone looks at the selected titles page. It's just kind of fluff. So it's not necessarily needed. But if someone was bored and they wanted to look, or they got so excited about me, they wanted to check, it's there. So, you know,
So so I got an error message once that I ignored about a year ago and meant to go back to, that said that my website wasn't being viewed on Google because I was
oh.
missing something. Or what are you supposed to do that to show up in searches?
So SEO
Yes.
is a massive thing. It seems more in the voiceover world. It's not a thing in narration. It's not important. So I wouldn't
Okay.
stress about it. So, and of course, I'm not going to remember exactly what the acronym stands for, but it's about your analytics and getting yourself seen online, the statistics, right?
Okay.
And so a lot of the times, like, well, what metadata tags do you have? And I don't want to spend a long time going into that, but we don't need it, right?
Okay.
So usually, when you get your website out, there's a lot of people that you'll just get these random emails. They're just looking to get work. Oh, I see your website. I can help you with your Google Analytics. You can just don't even bother answering them. It's
Okay.
just, they're just looking for work because they found you on on their tracker for new websites, and It's not, I don't want to waste a lot of time on that.
No, no, no. That's
Um,
all I needed to hear. You don't have to worry about it. That's good for me.
yeah.
Like, so, so the difference between working with someone and doing your own website. I mean, I've spent a lot of time. I could probably have saved a lot of that time, but back to the original chat we had about me being obstinate and stubborn. So I did a lot of that. So now, but if I were, some people don't want to, and some people are overwhelmed with the website. And guys, I'm not going to pretend on these calls if someone has a service that I'm not going to advertise it, even though the person's like uncomfortable with it. Everyone comes on going, oh, I'm not going to advertise. I'm like, yeah, but if it's a good service. But my question is, I'm getting the feeling it's like when you hire someone to do a book cover. You can't just hire someone and say, do my website for me. Can you make it perfect? What do you have to give that person so they can do the best job for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, for me, like, again, I'm a narrator first, and then my second love and passion is the website and the design stuff. So I always let people know, listen, everyone is capable of doing their own website nowadays with the drag and drop. It's not necessarily that hard, or filling in a template. Understanding your brand, or maybe how to word things, or what best way to lay out, that's a different story. Um, but a lot of times they don't have time, or they just can't wanna. And that's when I'm like, well, call me and we can can't wanna together and we'll figure out together. And so if you're gonna work with me, like Sarah Nessel, I had a great time working on her site, right? And so I'm like, okay, Sarah, I have this questionnaire that I now have. I can fill out with a bunch of questions, like, asking a little bit more about yourself. I get a little personal, because it's about finding out who you are personally, and how can we infuse your personality into your site, and as well as how it matches with what you can offer. Like for me, I'm never going to do the kind of books that you do. Like I can't do the sexy, gritty, noir-y kind of books that Daniela can do, and I'm okay with that. So
Yeah, and I can't sound innocent. If I tried to sound innocent, I couldn't sound innocent.
so I mean, I need information. I help write with the bios. Like if I'm gonna, so I'm like, sending me more information is a lot easier than to pick, things out of thin air.
And
I also,
I've got to interject with Sarah says she loves how you nailed the aesthetic she was going for. And to be honest with you, I checked out her site when she commented on it, and it's like that what I like about it is totally not my taste, but I love it because it pops. It's so clearly defined.
it's very Sarah.
So because she filled out the questionnaire, you got into her style and head by reading her questionnaire?
Well, it's not just that. We start with emails, and it's okay, when you want to have a free consultation, we'll talk for an hour or so and get to know each other. And then I'll ask pointed questions. I take questions, and we, you know, go from there as far as figuring out what it is that they need. What are they looking at? What kind of, do they already have an existing site? Okay, well, and let me just say right now, full disclosure, I suck at WordPress. I'm not an HTML coder. I know very little, and WordPress can be very clunky unless you have a lot of the plugins, and so that's not my specialty. And I always like, well, if you really want a hardcore WordPress site, I have plenty of people I can send you to who'll do right by you. But it's just about having really strong conversations. Okay, I like to listen to your demos or your samples to get a sense of who you are. I like to have conversations. Okay, well, it's not just about I'm an actor, or I used to be a lawyer, but now I love my, now I do this and I love it. And here's why, because my grandpa told me stories, and that's beautiful. But what is castable about you? It doesn't have to also just be, well, I'm an actor and I sing. Okay, but do you garden? Do you play video games? Did you used to be a game designer? What different things about you? Do you speak 5 languages? You know,
Right
all these.
there. But right there is what I was saying that you do. I couldn't put it into words. You've got that creative, what can I create? What's your style? But you always have in the back of your mind the rules. You've learned them. You know what they are. You know what the casting directors are looking for. You know what the business calls for. And you play your creativity. I've never known any, this is, you can say cheesy as any, I have never known anyone to mesh business and creativity completely together. Everyone I've ever met has been one or the other, stronger in one or the other. And right there, so you know the business rules, you find the way to take her style. Is that what you do? And you
I
mesh
try,
them with what
yeah.
you know that sells.
Well, yeah, and for me, it's also I like to be collaborative. For me, it's not just okay. Listen, I set up a Google Drive folders or Dropbox, whatever is preferred, so that okay, here's what I need from you. I need book covers if this is what you want. And I'm big on please do as much of the homework as possible to save me from. I don't want to nickel and dime anybody because I'm going to charge if you make me hunt for all these titles and then rename
Yeah,
them. That I'm going to charge you for it, and I don't want to, right? Because that's just superfluous. It's not
right.
that hard. I'm happy to show you how and easy to do it, but and please label your demos properly and the way these things are and then upload them to here and then make sure okay any pictures you have or any social media stuff and so to where it's like okay here's what I need from you, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so we've had this great chat. Okay, Daniela, you and I get on Zoom and okay, let's chat back and forth. I go off of my list, you go off of your list. But great, yes, let's do it. I'm excited. Great. Here's the homework list that I give you. And I send you this really thorough email and I say, here's all the points I'm going to need from you. And then we'll figure out, okay, well, how soon do you need it? Okay, well, that works out for my schedule. But it's a back and forth. Like, I don't just say, okay, drop it off on me and then bye-bye. I'll call you in a month when it's done. No, I'm very collaborative. And that's how I prefer to work because I don't want to spend 3 weeks on something and you look at it and you go, that's not what I thought at all. You
Yeah, I
know,
think as narrators, we can all relate to that at one time or another.
Yeah, I'm like, that's not what I meant, lady. And I still gotta pay you for that? No. So, I don't want to waste my time either. So usually I'm like, okay, here's all this stuff. And I'll put up certain things together. If I, like with Sarah's stuff, I put together this whole bunch of different font ideas for her name and different kind of potential. I wouldn't call them logos because I'm not a graphic designer, but logo-esque ways of how to put her stuff together. And then what do you think? Give me your choices. Then we go back and forth on that. Same thing with the bio. Or then I'll like, okay, well, and also, do you want to use Wix? Do you want to use Squarespace? Do you want to use Weebly? What do you want to use? And then we'll discuss, okay, well, here's how this works. Don't worry about picking out a template. We'll figure it out. Or if you want a template, then go for it and let me know. And so it's definitely I check in a lot and say, okay, I've laid out everything. There's placeholder stuff. Ignore yada yada, but just so you can see it, what do you think? Am I in the right direction? And sometimes what you think you want is not necessarily what you realize you want once you see it. So that's why I like to do a show and tell throughout the whole process.
I
Because it's
like
about
that.
it's your business. I don't want to F up your business, you know? And it's very important that you are confident in how you're selling yourself because this is sometimes the only chance people are going to get a first impression of you, and you need to be confident and proud of it. And so that's why I refuse to just let anybody go, okay, cool. Just no, I don't care. Do whatever you want. I'm like, nope, then we're not going to work together because I don't want to, have that much pressure. And I don't want you to be as disconnected about your
I
own
know.
career.
Also, I mean, if you don't care, really, what other parts of your business do you have that? I mean, and also communication. I mean, because I remember the writer where I did her whole book begging for communication. And then the response at the end was, I think I wanted you to sound more like a male Latino. I'm
Yeah.
like, you did know before I started your 10-hour book that I wasn't male or Latino, right? Question. When is the best, from Laura, when is the best time to make the Andrea investment into our websites? For example, should we have, this comes up with like most every move in the audiobook world. It's funny because I've never thought of it that way, like a certain amount of books. For example, should we have at least 10 titles before having our website professionally tweaked?
No. I that's a great question. I get that a
Yeah,
lot.
it
And
is.
and first of all, as I'm sure we've all heard before, but I'll say it again, we're all on our own journey, and there's no shame in ever saying I just started or I've got 5 books. Say it with pride. Don't go, I've only got 5. Yay,
Right.
you've got 5.
Yes.
Welcome to the club, right? So that's amazing. So own that. So it's the same thing about, one of the things I wish I had done when I first started, like 2014, I wish I had gotten my sound really set up well before I started recording books, because in the beginning I sounded like this, you know, and I'm not excited about that. And so there's certain things that before you're ready to put yourself out there professionally, I would say get yourself ready here first. Because if once you get your website, then what you're saying is you're signaling, I'm ready to work. So that would be my thing. If you haven't done a book yet, but you're ready to work, you've got your sound sorted, you've done a great training, and you're ready to rock and roll, that's when I'd say, yeah, let's set up a website. It can even just be a one-pager for now, and we can build upon it later. And some people, I've already created other tabs that we have hidden and say, okay, well, once you start getting press, then we can unlock that and hide, you know, unhide that in the navigation, then it'll pop up on your site. Or we can just go to it later, you know, or instead of a one page, we can eventually expand it. So, you know, I wouldn't stress out about that at all. And the most important thing, especially, I mean, it's slightly different between how publishers view our stuff versus how authors, independent authors view our stuff, or sometimes just authors, if they have narrators, say, with a publisher, is they still look at our website. Sometimes it's just the Audible link. But you know, people stalk you. I'm like, oh, Andrea, she might be interested in my book. Who is she? Right? So even if you'd never done a book, but you have amazing demos, right? And say, listen, I'm new, but I'm good. Give me a chance. That, and you have a great bio and you're showing some really interesting stuff about yourself. That could be all you need to get started. And then boom, great. And they're like, you interest me. I'm very much interested in seeing what you might be able to do in my book. Versus not having anything out there at all, when nowadays you have to have an internet imprint, you know, a digital imprint out there, because everyone's like, oh, hey, nice to meet you, Marley. I'm going to Google her. Who's Marley? What does she do? Where does she live?
Yeah, and I see a lot of people, oh, you can get my ACX profile link, or you can get my Facebook link. But it's like, why don't you have, the first thing is, why didn't you have a website?
And it's
you
more
have
professional too. Yeah, well, it's more professional too. And honestly, I mean, I got my start in ACX, and I still do every once in a while books in ACX, you know, so I'm a fan of what they have had to offer, and if it wasn't for them, I would have gotten into audiobooks.
Right, and it's okay to have a link, but that's not your business.
But that's also, it's not as strong as what it would be to have a professional website with your picture, with your bio, that's really all about you. That's not, I mean, they'll have to either get an account, or it's really clunky, or it's just that only hyper focuses on you and won't distract from anybody else or anybody else that they can end up going to. Plus, especially with publishers, no offense to ACX or all the 52 books I did on ACX and counting, they don't care. Like, what books have you worked with on a publisher? So they don't care if you're Audible approved, which I am, but they don't care. They don't care if, you know, what your ACX profile is on your site. They just care about strong work, you know? And it's not as strong to say, oh yeah, find me on Facebook. That's the worst thing you can do. You want to spoon feed. People have expectations of it's like our digital business card, if that makes sense. Like, instead of me writing on a napkin, oh, you want my information? Oh, here's a gum wrapper. Let me write it here, and I hand that to someone, versus here's my business card. That's how I look at it, if that makes sense.
It does. And also, do you agree with this? It's a really good point. You didn't say a question, but Kurt said, if you send them to ACX, they can also look at other narrators.
Exactly.
That
was exactly what I was. Yes, Kurt, exactly. I was referencing of, you're not hyper focusing on you. You're giving them the distractibility of going somewhere else and going, oh, I really loved Andrea, but oh, wait a second. Oh my gosh, forget it. I'm going with Marie.
And there's Andrea too, and she charges less. I mean, she just started a month ago, but her voice is kind of the same. I'm sure it's the same thing.
As gracious and amazing as our community is, and I think I've never met anyone in our industry who is ever crapping on anyone else for getting a role. Like, if Nancy and I both auditioned for the same role and she got it, I'd be like, oh my God, yay, congrats.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't be like, you know, but at the same time, behind the scenes, I'm not going to go, well, while I'm auditioning, you're and considering me, check out Nancy too. Like, you know, when you're in the moment, But if it's a book that I'm like, oh, I can't do it. But you know what? Nancy's amazing. Why don't you sing, right? It's like, imposter syndrome. Listen, I have my freak out moments. I've had 2 famines this last year that freaked me out. And I had my little moment. And then I chilled out. I'm like, okay, it's fine.
After the famine, did you go up a step? I have a theory that every famine happens right before you're about to take a step up in your career.
I'll let you know because I'm just coming off of famine. But I got to say, I am excited that, what I did during that famine is I worked double down on my marketing stuff and retweaked my website and cultivated relationships. I did the whole entire masterclass for PJ with Dion Audio. Oh my God, that was amazing, right? So, and just honed and worked on myself and figured out other ways that I can continuously work on myself. So
You've
it
gone
might have
up a
been
step.
it might have been a famine in the sense that I didn't have bookable work at that in the booth where I'm recording, but I was constantly working, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you were working on your business as opposed to, but you've gone up a step. Get back to us on that. I guarantee with all that, you're going to find that you're going to look back and you go, oh, that was when my career, I swear to you.
Well, I got to tell you, it's hard to quantify that in a black and white scenario because it changes all the time, right? Well, I was going to talk about the imposter syndrome for a second, about going through that moment where, and going, oh my gosh, I have to stop myself when I audition for a book, like what Sean says, and what I've heard my whole life: audition and let it go and forget about it. If you get it, oh, that's a nice surprise, because I refuse, because I've been tempted to go to Audible and go, who got that book I auditioned for? Because it's just going to kill my self-esteem, even if I'm happy for, oh my God, yay, Nancy, damn it. It was you. You're that good. But no, but because you want to keep yourself as healthy as possible, right? Because it can be such a difficult thing to be in our isolated padded cell, schizophrenically talking to ourselves, but when you have these famine moments, you have to, once you get over the freak out moment, you realize the blessing that it can be, and the moment to relax, regroup, and redirect. And I got coaching. You should always be learning. You should always get coaching. No matter, I don't care if you've been doing this for 100 billion years. There's so much you can still learn. And I've found that I'm better than I will be better today when I get in the booth to record than I was yesterday, and that's always my goal. So when you have that outlook, I think that just you can't help but elevate, because it's just about timing. Opportunity meets luck, or whatever that adage is.
And it's also, it's us against us. We're our biggest time waste drain if we let that head stuff. And I think working through that makes us stronger.
I do too. And I think, going to your point about leveling up or stepping up, for me, and as you've heard before, it's about cultivating relationships. And when I do websites, I'm cultivating a relationship with the person that I'm working with, so that we can get you some avenues where you can have discussions about things that are more interesting and connect with the people you're wanting to cast you, whether it's publishers or independent authors. When I say everything on your site should be castable, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. We've heard this ad nauseum, right? But it's true, right? For me, I'm super excited. I can't talk about what the book is, but I'm doing my first Simon & Schuster book this week. And I'm super excited. Thank you. But that's because after speed dating, which I was very lucky to finally get in last August, I cultivated a relationship with one of the contacts there. And it just lucked out that we gelled, and it just turned into something that we were emailing back and forth. And it wasn't a desperation thing. It was just organically letting stuff happen and not trying to push, oh my God, hire me, and I think when you let go, moments like that can happen, but it could take 7 months or a year.
But you're meeting them for who they are, because you genuinely like the person, not because you're desperate for them to give you work today. So 7 or 8 months later, they remember a person they genuinely like. The thing is, it's like, you have to like someone to like them. You can't just like them to get something from them, because they know it. They're going to know.
They already know that we want something from them. We want work. But I think when we go to APAC, when we're able, or any of these other events, when you, instead of just rambling off your resume, I usually talk about my game design background, or I'm producing an animated short film, or I'm obsessed with my cat. You know, you'd be surprised at what's memorable, you know, and that can be castable because I've done several game design, you know, lit RPG books, or I've done 2 tech books because of that, you know, and that's when I say what's castable on your website. Those are the fun facts, as I call them. You know, what else about you that is interesting and fascinating? Like Julie and Dan from PRH talk about this a lot on APAB. You want, everything is a trigger buzzword. When they type in their search words, if they're looking for, okay, I want this, you know, Ukrainian, I'm part Ukrainian, Ukrainian, Italian, Portuguese, Ukrainian girl who speaks conversational French, but used to be a game designer, and like all this like weird, like why would you ever mash that up? But I have all of those things, or at least a couple of those, that will help draw their attention to you because you're giving them more than just, well, I've been an actor for 45 years and
I
I'm,
know.
you know, what, which I call fluff. Like I always say, let's get rid of the fluff. I don't care what your and I don't mean this to sound heartless. I don't care what your inspiration. I don't want to see a paragraph about what drove you from you were a child and this beautiful anecdotal story about what drew you into reading books. It's okay if you want to have like a sentence, but let's get to the meat of it. Where are you from? Where do you live? What's your background? Who are you? That's the kind of stuff I can dig my teeth in. I went to APAC, wow, 2 years ago, and had a conversation at a party with someone from Hachette, and all we did was talk about Dungeons and Dragons for 20 minutes, and it was awesome. And then when I went back home and I emailed him like, hey, Halfling Rogue here, you know, and now you have interesting points to talk about when you're doing the you know, the marketing calls. But the same thing about your website, to bring it back to what we're talking about, it's those moments that you can show your personality, show your passions outside of just, I am an actor and I'm awesome. But also, here's a passion I have about horticulture, or I used to be a paralegal and I love Latin, or whatever it is, or I'm a classically trained ballet dancer, or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
those things matter, and they help you be memorable, they help you connect, and they help also the people who are trying to cast relate to you and connect to you. Because like a long time, and this is silly, but a long time ago with someone from Hachette, now this was in 2017, I met a casting director there, and we both connected because we were only children. Who knew, right? So you want to think outside of the box. So when I say, okay, listen, D, tell me everything. I don't want to mean to be your therapist, but give me a whole bunch of stuff, and then we'll piece out what we think together, how you want to present yourself, what fun facts that you think you might want to, forgive me, exploit when you're selling yourself.
Okay, so I've got 2 questions I don't want to miss out. First one was from Rebecca. You thought I forgot you, Bex, didn't you? The first question was, what about her pseudonym? Because she's plans on using it. Does she need to have a separate dedicated site for her pseudonym? And
I do.
Yeah.
Here's the difference for me. Andrea Emmes does everything except erotica, right? Especially Christian books and a lot of kids books and YA books.
There's no
I
way
can't
you
be
could.
merging, especially if I've got authors looking at my site, whether it's an independent author that I'm auditioning for ACX or Findaway or wherever, or through a publisher when they're like, okay, it's down to 2 people, and they're like, well, who am I going to choose? And they're going to start Googling this, and I don't want them to see, oh, well, I've got this book about that's for middle graders, but she does this, you know, other stuff that is just, my readers can't be into, you know, we can't cross the lines there. And here's the thing, on Findaway or ahab ahab talent or ergo.us or ACX or fill in the blank, we have the samples that we turned in to say, here, this, or uploaded, this is what represents us, our little bio. Most of the time with those sites, they're just looking within there, unless they decide on their own to look elsewhere if they have the time. So mostly that's probably why. But when I say is, who is your audience for your website, right? But that doesn't mean just because you have all this stuff, or because on my site. I am YA, kids like, doesn't mean I don't do saucy stuff, you know, as well. Like under my demos, I say pseudonym upon request. They have to email me. I'm
I
not going to
like that.
say what my pseudonym name is, just to save a whole bunch of stuff. But I do have a one-page website that's just for my pseudonym.
Oh, so it's a simple one. It's one page. It's not
It's up
all
to
the bells
you.
and
That's just,
whistles.
well, that's just up to, that's just my personal
Just how
thing.
much focus you want to put on it.
Yeah, I don't do as much of that. You know, it just depends on the person. I mean, I've done some that are the same as involvement as their regular one. It just depends. It depends on what you want, really.
Okay, there's another question, and I don't want to miss it. I can't remember who said it. Oh, Marley, do you ever get a book, begin narrating it, and then the imposter syndrome hits, and it's like you've forgotten how to do the job? I always get so hyper perfectionistic about every line that it takes me out of the story.
Yes, I have. And then I have to remind myself to get over myself. I remember it's not easy. I mean, you know, I've been an actor for like 30 years and so I get it, right? But you have to remind yourself and tell yourself, I got the job. There was a reason I was hired. And if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So for me, when I get into those headspaces, I just have to stop because I'm not doing anybody any good. So then I'll just binge watch something, you know, upbeat, not Criminal Minds or something.
Not the news. Oh my God. It doesn't help, Daniela. Turn it off.
Yeah. But I also think that's the plight of actors, right? We're
Yeah.
always is my website right? Like I tweak my website probably every couple months, just if the mood spurs, you know. But I think that's just, we're constantly evolving, we're constantly creative, and we're more in touch with who we are as emotionally, and our inner child and all that stuff, that it's unavoidable to have those moments. So just try to talk yourself off the ledge and you'll be fine. But yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay, now we had another question. It's from D. It's time to renew my account with GoDaddy. I was like, I think it's like I'm not familiar with GoDaddy. I'm like, what are these people talking about? GoDaddy. This is
Yeah.
about websites.
Yeah, GoDaddy. Yeah.
That's a website, is it?
Well, so okay, there's a difference between a website, which is
Oh, it's
andreaemmes.com,
a hosting
versus
platform.
the hosting platform and or the builder, right? So GoDaddy is a hosting site and or builder. You can buy your domain from GoDaddy. You can actually do your site through GoDaddy.
She
Or
wants
you
to
can
know
do
if
all.
it would be an advantage to moving to Wix or another. And Kurt
Well,
said he's heard good things about Squarespace.
I've used Squarespace. I've used Squarespace for Sean Pratt, Shannon Parks, and her alt Marguerite Gavin, and Peter Burkrot. And yeah, they're good. There's a lot of great things to them. There are some restrictions and limitations that they have versus what the other two don't, as far as like textually or whatever. But yeah, no, Squarespace is great, and I love working with them. My question for you, who was the one with the GoDaddy question?
I think it was D.
Oh, D. Hey, do you is your site built on GoDaddy?
Yes, it is.
Okay, did you do the site on GoDaddy?
Yes.
Okay, so are you happy with it? Are you familiar with
Actually, I am. It's so different from anything I've seen out there that I'm getting paranoid that maybe it's different in a bad way.
Well, if you want to talk offline
I
at some
will.
point, we can do that. I mean, I can do a quick diagnostic and we just discuss that. But to your question, in a more vague sense, it depends on how you feel, right? If you've done your site and you're happy with it, or you know, there's no issues, even if you just want to zhuzh it up, that's different. If you were to go to, you know, if your subscription is coming up soon and you want to transfer your domain to Wix or Squarespace or Weebly or WordPress or whatever, then you have to redo it, right? You have to like redesign it on a different website builder. So that's something to keep in mind with, right?
Yeah.
So like for me, like when people like, I hate WordPress and I all these issues are Flash. I just dealt with this with someone last year. Like, unfortunately, it was like way too late in the game, because Flash for those of you who don't know, Flash Player was a big thing back in the 90s and the early 2000s especially, and a lot of websites were made with Flash, and you have to download the Flash Player if you've ever seen those pop-ups. Well, as of December 31st, 2020, Flash no longer is usable or exists, so anybody with the Flash site is bummed. It's not good. So it's unusable. So he's like, well, how can we fix this? I'm like,
But
and
you
that's
would know that by now, right? I say, because I use WordPress and I'm panicking. Yep,
well,
if
no,
my site's okay now, it's good.
well, yeah, I mean, you would have gotten a message if your site was flashing, be like, you need to sort this out now. You would have gotten
Okay.
a message. But my point by saying that is when someone said, oh my God, I've got this issue, and I told this person, well, it's going to have to be redone, whether you stay with the builder that you're on now versus going to someplace else. It's just a matter of how long it may or may not take versus the other. WordPress or something like for the instance with the Flash thing, that would require a massive coding kind of a thing, and the migration is not even really that clean, and it might not even partially work. It'd be best to start from scratch. So it depends on also like, okay, well, if you don't want to do that, Dee, then you might want to hire someone. It doesn't have to be me, someone to either zhuzh up the GoDaddy one or transfer you to a different platform. So it's not as black and white, if that makes sense, as far as
Yeah.
what do you do.
Thank you so much, and I will circle back to you.
Sure.
And I should
It's a good
preface it
question.
with saying we don't want to take our eye off. Andrea's a narrator. I mean, she's like seriously full time. I have no idea how she cranks out that many quality books. But so getting time with Andrea is, I mean, you don't like schedule back and back websites, do you, Andrea? You do it, the narration is first.
Yeah. I mean, I love, like I said, I love doing the websites, but it's definitely not something I try to be full time about it. So if I have a lot of inquiries, I usually ask, okay, well, how soon do you need it? Like a lot of time, usually my biggest rush is before APAC. Like I need to get this done before APAC. And so I'm able to find pockets of time where I'll be more available during that kind of a thing, because that makes a lot of sense for me as far as, the need that our people need. But I would just say the best, just reach out to me and we'll figure it out. And if I can't, I'll try to send you into another direction. Or like one of the things too, like I'm not interested in being your update guru, right? I don't want you to come to me like, hey, I've got an update. Can you please fix this? I don't want that. I want to be able to send you off and you can record it. I'll do a tutorial for you for the things that you are interested in, like updating, and you can videotape it, so that way you won't need me unless you need me, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
because
actually,
that could be a nightmare.
well, yeah, I mean, especially if you're the type of person, I used to do this in the beginning where I'd have, recording now, coming soon, now on Audible, and that can rotate a lot. And, if you want to put in that time to update that stuff, great. I can help you and show you how to do that once we set it up, so you don't need anybody but yourself, because only you know when that is needing to be done, or if you've got something emergent. You can't, and I live in California, but you live in England, and our time differences are so different, so I try to help people be as self-sufficient as possible, because we shouldn't have to be updating our websites that intensely, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
We should
yeah.
be focusing on the work, updating your demos, or tweaking little bios, or if you've got, oh my God, I just worked for Simon and Schuster, I can't wait to put their logo on my site. That's different. But
Well, so I've got a question for you. Somebody asked a question. Okay, so I have a question for you. Of all the things that you see when you see people's existing websites, when you go to take it over,
yeah.
what would you say are the most common, back to what we said, like rules that you see people go terribly wrong, like well-intentioned mistakes?
Yeah. Can't find anything. I have to search for their demos. I have to hunt and find their contact information. I have to read too much. They're throwing too much spaghetti on the wall and it's not streamlined. you don't want to over stimulate someone on your page. I can see some pages that are like I don't know where to look. My brain is just, I can't focus because there's too much for me. So that just might mean you might need a sub page, or maybe spread it out to where, or I'm scrolling for days. That's like my biggest pet peeve is the scrolling, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Somebody, Rebecca, I know this is she didn't type question, but I know this is a question. She typed, "Ooh, I got one." If you were on a production company's roster and on their website, but have never done a book for them, would you put their logo on your website?
No. No, and the reason why is because it's false advertising. Because the way the expectation or the psychological inference that I have perceived and what I understand is, if you put the logo there, that means, oh, you've worked for them, and then you don't want to be called out later and go, oh, wait a second, I just talked to my contact over at yada yada, they said they'd never worked with you before. So you don't want to be confusing. And I don't link my roster, my B audio page on my website on the B audio logo. Why would I ever want to take them out of my website, right? Because they live everywhere they need to go, and what I want them to do is go to my contact and email them and go, hey, I want to hire you. Or they contact B audio, hey, I see Andrea, worked with you. How was it with you? Oh yeah, she was great. Great. Let's, otherwise you're just mucking up some stuff.
Now, oh, I got one. What about on the page that you have the books? I was told when they click the book, it opens a separate tab into that book on Audible. But do I not want it? I do want to send them to Audible, or I'm sending them away from my website.
So there's a difference there, because you want people to buy your audiobook. And this is so yes, I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth on that point.
Okay.
Because I do on my selected titles page, which I don't know who looks at it, if anybody. It's, for me, fluff. But if they do, there's a link to the Audible library. There's a link to my audiophile reviews, and then top 6 books for young adult, kids, adult, nonfiction, whatever. If they click on it, if they click on Little Women, then it'll take them to my Little Women page. For me, I feel like if someone is really looking at it, they might be an author, or they might actually maybe be a listener, but our sites aren't meant for fans. Our sites our audience is casting people and or authors. So, but I also don't think it's necessarily necessary unless you want to be on an affiliate program, because that can also be helpful, and it's a whole nother conversation. So, but what I will say is, if you're doing your own site, sorry to point at you, if you're doing your own site.
No, point away, because this is good stuff.
And you're going to have someone, if they click on it, it's going to take them to another page. Put open a new window. Don't let it open up a brand new tab. Don't take them away from the main page, because they're going to forget to back, especially if they go on like a rabbit hole and they're like, oh crap, I have to back 14 times. They'll forget it. I don't need to look at her site again anyway. So always want to open anything that you're redirecting to a brand new window or tab.
That's what mine.
I feel satisfied and proud of what I do, but I don't post about it. I don't post, oh my God, here's my new site, I zhuzhed it up. No. Sorry.
You might be more.
But I have something to say about that, actually, and this could be controversial, and so take with a grain of salt.
Okay, controversial is good.
Personally, I don't think the smartest way in receiving the kind of feedback that you truly need versus what you want
at all.
You're gonna get it, but this is not what. But is if you're like, hey everybody, I want to crowdsource the hive mind. I just finished my website. Can you tell me if it's okay? That's just dopamine. No offense to anyone who's done it. And in my early days, I've done it too. That's just a false dopamine thing. That's not going to give you actual creative, constructive criticism to give you the kind of
and demos.
And demos too. And the reason why I think that is most people, they're probably even, they get in the habit, oh, love it, and they keep moving. They don't listen. You're getting too many false positives, and then you're going to start puffing yourself up, unfortunately, without really recognizing that, oh, you know what, maybe I should go to a coach who actually knows what to look for. Or, you know what, I thought my sound sounded great. Well, so-and-so said it was great, so therefore I'm done. I'm like, well, does that person really understand acting? Or are they just being nice? Like, you know, so I think it's one thing, like, you know, when you're like, okay, listen to my demos and tell me the adjectives that you hear, and that's a different kind of a message or thing.
I feel like
then
if I want advice, I'll pay for it, because I don't want it to be personal. That kind of advice. I just don't want it to be personal. I just want to know it's someone I trust. I've paid them money, and that's what they're paid to do. Give me objective advice, right? A coach or something.
Well,
Do you know what I mean?
I think if you really want to capitalize on going in the right direction the first time, instead of just being excited about, oh, everyone loved it, and because it's like there's a difference between, no, I just need the satisfaction of the Atta girls, or no, I really want the hard hitting, no honey, pink is just not going to work out for this, only because blah, blah, blah. You know, you have to be prepared to know exactly why and what you're doing. And also it can be a little frustrating for those of us who see it, who go, ugh, no offense, but just pass it by.
But like, if I had paid you to do my website, right, and you had told me I wouldn't have. I think at the time that I wasn't ready to get rid of the pink, I didn't know enough to pay someone. I wasn't confident enough, and I wasn't in a place that I was confident. The changes I made to my website came from me booking Emily for Business, right? I didn't know I was going to have to change my website. I didn't think the website was going to be part of it, but I paid my money. That's the difference. And I know it sounds harsh, and you got me doing that in the beginning. You said, go to Sean. You said, go to Paul Rubin. Every single time, and don't just go to a coach and say, so many people are like addicted to coaches. I'm going to go to this coach. You have to go with a reason. You have to go with can you please help me with this? That's another thing Andrea taught me in the beginning. She said, I went to Sean, he taught me this. I went to Paul Rubin and he taught me this. You go with a reason. Don't just go to a coach because you feel like you're not good enough and you want someone to make it better. You gotta pay. Like, if I were to pay Andrea today, I would take her damn advice. If she said get rid of pink, I would get rid of pink. You know, because it's professional relationship.
Well, and I think what a professional can do, or someone who has experience in doing these kind of things, whether it's coaching or, you know, what I do, which is design and slash coaching in this realm, in the brand website realm, is you can ask me why, and I'll tell you. Listen, you don't have to go with it, but here's my why, and have an actual conversation instead of just like, well, I like it. And sometimes I find that when people aren't in a place where they either just aren't aware, be it naive or not ready or whatever the reason, sometimes they're not ready for the constructive feedback that turns into crap. Now I got to actually work because now I have to change it. It can be so much easier to be lazy and go, oh, you know, enough people said it's good, so I'm just going to go with that. But unfortunately, like what I said way earlier, I wish I had sorted my booth out first, because, you know, for some people, I set myself off in a bad first impression because my sound sounded like this, you know, instead of starting off on the right foot, at least as close to I can to begin with, and have a better first impression, you know. But you know what, but we all go through what we go through, and it's don't beat yourself up. I mean, I've done so many stupid things, or things
And you know what, it never ends. The difference between dealing with the things that you're uncomfortable with, it comes in like phases, doesn't it? Because like 5 years ago I couldn't have like fixed pink, but like
same with me.
5 years later, I'm still doing stupid things that I realized like last week and go, oh my God.
Well,
you know.
and that's the whole thing. Like, even for me and what I am doing, I like to talk to a lot of people, casting to people, a lot of other coaches or the other website designers. And we all grow when we merge. What was trendy or worked 2 years ago might not work now. Or if you think about interior design, postmodernism might be out, and rustic chic might be in. I mean, so trends change, or you have to be able to go with the flow. So don't beat yourself up, but be open to be open, and seeking, to learn as much as we can, like others have said, Sean especially. But um our job is not just talking into a mic and performing. It's all the other stuff involved. It's the art and the science. It's the marketing. It's the website. It's understanding, the auditioning process. So it's so much more complicated than what people fantasize and glamorize what we do. When they really get into the weeds of it, they're like, "Oh, I didn't realize I'd have to do all this." You're like, yeah, and I'm still learning.
What did
Welcome.
you learn? What was the biggest lesson? What's the biggest difference between Andrea now and Andrea when you very first started your first book? Like that you wished you could have learned years earlier, but at least you know it now.
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't. That's a hard question. I mean, I feel like I finally now, after, I mean, I've been doing this since 2014, but I'd say I really, really, really started full time in late 2017. But I feel like
You,
I just now finally feel comfortable with all of my DAW and my stack, what I need to do outside of a publisher, excuse me, a post-production person, engineer, versus if I have to do it myself,
yeah.
and making sure it sounds right. And,
You were new when you helped me. You were new. I remember thinking, wow, that girl, I thought you were like
I didn't know what the hell I
famous.
was doing.
You were like, I thought you were like famous, successful audiobook narrator. And you were at the stage that we were at, but you hit the ground running early.
Well, I've always been a big proponent of research. And again, I wish I hadn't jumped in and started recording until I had sorted out my sound. That would have been a big thing. I would have said, "No, Andrea, no, don't do that." But you live and you learn. Um, but from now, I've learned better how to network, or how to deal with the imposter syndrome, which again, I've been doing this for like 30 years on and off as an actor, and it
Because you're a
just ebbs and
singer
flows.
as well, aren't you? I mean,
Yeah, I've done a whole swath of things in my heyday. Um, but the biggest thing I think is actually fighting over myself and my confidence, and understanding that, I'm enough. Even though I have goals of where I want to be and how, the next level I'd like to eventually be, I'm good enough where I'm at now, and to enjoy and revel in that, and just be that, and, not crap on myself all the time because I'm not where so and so is. Um, I struggled with it a lot earlier on, because like, oh my gosh, everyone's posting, I got all these books, I'm booked out till 2025. I'm like, I'm not even booked, and that can be very stressful. And instead of internalizing all of that, what I used to do, I've found the joy in receiving that from other people, and not berating myself with that information at the same time. So I don't like circle the drain, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
So
Which
if
has helped me be healthier, be more open for opportunities, or for conversations, or for my own work, or not like somebody said, I'm so sorry, I don't remember where I get, so I think maybe, I don't remember, cut myself off when I'm doing a job. I get insecure, and now I feel like, why did I get this
yeah,
job? That has helped me more now, and I struggled that a lot more in the early stage.
because
And
you've
I think
got
that,
a stable identity as a narrator, a stable core identity. So you're not just kind of blown with the wind. They like me, they didn't like me.
yeah, well, I think a lot of that has to do with just you working on yourself personally, individually, and all of that. But also surrounding myself with a good support system, is crucial. Um, Daniela and I are part of a small group of safe spacers, where we, and then like, okay, you're okay, to where we are free to be freaked out, and then we help each other out. And because it is okay to feel that way, it's okay to look at, like, am I doing this the right way? And also recognizing the fact that there's enough for everybody. It's a feast or a famine. It's, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to hit you with one last thing, your legacy sentence here.
Oh,
Sean
Lord.
started me on this. Since this is going to be on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
what would you like to say to the people that are going to watch it in like 20, 30 years from now? You know, well, you never know how long these things stay. Any advice, any famous last words, anything you'd like to leave them with? Website, narration, best practices, makeup tips.
No, no, no on the makeup.
I'm just thinking YouTube,
I
what
know,
sells?
I know. When you're getting into this business, whether it's just an actor as a complete umbrella versus the little subgenres in there or audiobook narration, I think you have to recognize it's more than just one thing. Speaking, performing. You have to understand that you have to envelop all of it, the art, the science, and the admin underneath, and be one with it and recognize that, you're taking all of it. That's not all glamorous. There's a tediousness, especially when you first start, where you proofing and editing your own stuff. You're like, oh my God, this is so tedious, but you have to find the joy in it. And I always like to gamify things, but I think if you can find passion in no matter what it is that you're doing, the tedium just rolls by and you get through it, because you remember, oh my God, I get to read out loud for a living. What the? So when you're dealing with stuff that, like my website, oh my God, I don't know how to do this, or I'm not quite sure, is this the right picture? Is this what I want? Breathe, you'll get through it. Don't be afraid to ask people. Don't be afraid to pull other people into your orbit and be vulnerable and say, what do you think? Or, hey, can I, what's your charge for an hour of coaching on yada, yada? And then being open. The thing is just being open. The more open you are, the more easy everything else will fall into place and won't be as stressful. Because I know websites and branding and figuring out your social media, all that can be hyper stressful, but it doesn't have to be if you choose to not put it in that box. Does that make sense? Especially if you collaborate with partners who can help you. You're not in it alone.
And it doesn't have to be done right this second. It's not an emergency.
Yeah. I don't know if that's like the legacy thing, but I think that's good food for thought.
No, I think that's brilliant. Best legacy we've had so far. So, thanks so much for taking the advice, the time to see us and give us advice. And I don't want you to be bombarded, which you probably will be anyway, but
that's all right.
I'll put your design website, will I, on the post on the YouTube playlist?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Okay. And because some of us don't, I'm on WordPress. I wished I hadn't gotten into that. So sometimes it is just easier to go to someone and consult and everything. But
yeah, well, and one of the things that I've done too, especially if if I don't have the time, or if it's a WordPress and I'll tell you right now, it's not my strength. I can send you to several people who know it flat, but you can, we can set up a time where I can do a website diagnostic, where we can just do the design coaching part of it, so that you can take that either to the designer that you want to go to who does WordPress, or when you're doing it yourself, so that you have more of the understanding of the tools that I would have used if I did it myself. But I can then, well, here, let's videotape this consultation and this diagnostic session, and then let's figure out the points that you can level up your site, and then good luck and take it or leave it.
It'd probably take a lot less time too. I think in total, 4 nights, all night, trying to figure out HTML codes, which I don't even know what they are.
Oh yeah. Well, luckily with WordPress, there's a lot more, especially if you get the right plugins, it can be a lot more drag and drop, and it's not as you only have to be able to code. So they've made it much more user friendly, but it's clunky, and sometimes getting under the hood can be strenuous. So
yes. Thank you so much, Andrea. You are, as you were in 2014, and always will be, a star.
Oh, thank you.
So,
thank you, everybody.
For the time. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We love you all. Have a wonderful night. Bye, everyone. Bye. Bye, Andrea. Thanks.
Bye.